Margaret Kuhlman of Soul Astrology. The new moon this month is in Virgo, 27 degrees, so the sun has been going through Virgo for the last few weeks. Mercury is in Virgo already, and Mars just behind it, and Venus has just gone into Virgo. So in the last couple of days before this new moon, the moon went across all of that, giving us the mood of this time, the mood of the next 4 weeks. Very Virgo. The feeling tends to be a desire to get things done, to do the next thing, to organise the things in front of us. It can be distracting from a central path, and particularly because we see that the Saturn in Sagittarius is at right angles, it's square to the new moon. So the circumstances, or that is to say, the way we have been thinking previously, our beliefs, our situation, our plans, may well find themselves at right angles to what we're actually doing. It could easily be a distraction from our sense of purpose. And yet all the things need doing. The decks need clearing. And who's to say when something that felt like a distraction when it first appeared isn't actually something that needs to be cleared to give you space in an area that has been cluttered for rather a long time. By clearing what is around us and what comes to our hand and what occurs to us, what strikes the eye, clearing those things clears space for new thought, a rearrangement of priorities, a smoothing out of the psychic space. So we might be creating this month a sense of cleanness, paring down possessions in a way that makes us feel lighter. In fact, the Mercury and Mars are both trining Pluto, so our minds and our energy are right on line with that idea of transforming how we think, how we live our lives, how we organise our food, our well-being, exercise, sleep, so on. Very energising, bearing in mind that if we put a lot of energy out, we do need to rest to compensate, to recharge the batteries. And even the way we use our energy is up for change. We'll need to take care not to use too much force when communicating, because anything that's said with Mercury trine Pluto is liable to go deep into the other person. This can be a very good thing, but also, of course, it can hurt if we're not being conscious and careful. Mercury is directly facing across the chart Neptune in Pisces, and this adds the possibility of confusion through having us aware of so many things, all the things that are around us, of making us aware of far more than just the bit we're dealing with. Confusion is not a bad thing on a temporary basis, which this will be, because it enables all sorts of things to happen that consciously we might have blocked. Things can unfold and then present us with something we'd never have thought of. So don't worry about being confused. It opens the mind to input from the other levels of life, makes us sensitive to how the surroundings are, as well as to our own emotional state. We may feel uncertain of whether we're doing the right thing or saying that which is most helpful. One of the tendencies of Virgo Mercury is to find where the fault is that needs to be changed. It's a very useful skill, but it can be fault finding, and it can become criticism of others, but mostly of oneself. Self-doubt could creep in and hinder some of that energy. Important to ask inwardly for the spirit to flow through one's speech and actions. That will unblock the pipe. The Neptune connecting to Mercury when feeding the mind gives perfect, clear and valuable information, even if the Mercury still has to find the words to put it in. That pattern doesn't connect with the other planets in the chart, so we may find ourselves surprised when blockages occur, like, why is this happening to me? With the new moon itself squaring Saturn, as I said, and opposite to Chiron. The new moon is facing across at Chiron, the woundedness, the vulnerability of human beings, both squared by Saturn. So this background to our thinking and clearing is a trying to be helpful, trying to find a way of encompassing what's happening in spite of the philosophical or moral boundaries we might have had in place. How could this happen? That sort of question. Rather than asking in that tone, we need perhaps to ask, how could that happen? And maybe an answer will occur. But from the emotional depths of our reactions to trauma, it's very difficult to ask intelligently. What's required is a stepping back. Saturn is trining the North Node. It's the right energy. It represents ideas that are appropriate for this time. It isn't a bad guy, and it has a trine aspect, that blue line, to Uranus in Aries, which is about us being able to step back and take our own place, to see what's happening outside with as little judgmental input as possible. It's being the observer, and when observing clearly, it's much easier to understand what's happening than when being emotionally involved, of course. Uranus is also trine to Venus, so this ability to observe what's happening before getting stuck in will actually serve in our relationships. And serve perhaps is a good word there because it's about our service as well, how we can serve. That if we stand back with a positive view of life as a whole and observe what's going on, then our actions will not only help others, they will move the whole situation forward in a good way. There are two quincunxes in the chart as well. The new moon itself, as sun and moon, quincunx exactly to Uranus, and Jupiter, who is opposite Uranus, quincunxing the Chiron. So we can see that there is a lot of potential for good works, for anything that is being set up to be part of the helpful process, being really encouraged, enjoyed. The thing with Jupiter and Uranus opposite to each other, Jupiter in Libra is giving in relationship, giving to make harmony, trying to bring happiness and peace everywhere. We could find ourselves doing far too much. It's that energy thing, putting too much in and then being wiped out, or realizing that we've stepped beyond our boundaries and we don't even agree with all of that. The Uranus opposite is those moments when we pull back and do the complete opposite other thing, being solitary and taking care of our own self and never mind the others. Rather than this extreme vacillation, it's important for us to remember to take time out. Taking time out to kind of internally regroup, to recharge the batteries, to take care of ourselves so that we are better able to take care of others. And in our own personal life, it's taking time out to relax, to rest, to enjoy, to gaze about a bit and appreciate the beauty of the world before attacking the work that needs to be done as well. Finding a balance between those two things, the rest and the labour. And with the North Node in Leo, of course, all the labour as well as the rest needs to be a pleasure. The full moon chart is more testing, I think. The Sun has moved into Libra with Mercury, quincunxing the Neptune, speaking from the heart, at the same time as being really sensitive on an emotional level. possibly with that square to Pluto, finding the changes that you've been trying to make in the first part of the month, finding the difficulties there, feeling that you may have stepped too far in terms of the people around you and maybe need to backtrack a bit and correct up some of the things you said maybe. But it's really important not to criticize oneself for anything that may have come out inadvertently, but rather just keep moving forward and do one's best to make it better. Not to backtrack on your meaning, but just to soften the method, maybe the tone of voice or whatever it is. Relationships. The Venus and Mars right together in Virgo. It's a beautiful thing when the masculine and feminine are so close, operating together. The energy in relationship is so intimate. Yet in Virgo, it's still careful. It's not going to go overboard. The trine to Pluto is as though we will find ways to make the change, the transition from wherever we've been to where we're hoping to get. And yet there is still, from the Venus and Mars now, the square to Saturn, who's still squaring Chiron. So the difficulties are there. It's as though with both these charts, with this whole month, we're making our way through rather difficult territory. It's a matter of how we do it that's important. Saturn trine Uranus is still giving us this clue about detaching a bit from what's going on, not identifying ourselves with what's happening. What's happening is just what's going on out there. Even the emotions that may be turbulent on the inside, even that is just more happening, because it all moves along, it all changes. It's our relationship with it all that matters. Facing all of this change and turbulence, it's entirely up to us how we relate to it. As Saturn is trining the North Node, this time is very much about holding a positive belief system, not allowing yourself to sink into a negative vortex. We can't make ourselves be a particular way, but we can respond to ourselves in our feelings with open-heartedness. We can accept the way we are, the way things are, without quarrelling with it. We can bring warmth into the situation. Saturn is making his way now towards the end of Sagittarius. In the middle of December, he will go into Capricorn, his own sign, and a different phase of experiences will begin. He's been in Sagittarius for just over 2 years now, and all of this time it's as though all the experiences we've been having are to point out how the way we think creates our experience. What we believe is what we tend to see outside ourselves, and that growth and change are always possible in these fields. If we can grasp that and realize the power that it gives us in our lives, we are ready to move into Capricorn, where intentions manifest much more quickly. The last couple of months of Saturn in Sagittarius, or in any sign, we tend to get the whole of the last couple of years' experience concentrated so that we get the lesson. And Sagittarius, the great adventurer, will have gathered a lot of experiences in this last couple of years. The turbulence is there this month and will be there up until the middle of December. And as Sagittarius grows, it's climbing all the time to get a better view. So let's keep climbing and widening our view, accepting more and more how things really are. And with the trine to the North Node this month, it's through enjoyment, being ourselves as we really truly are, that will bring about the greatest joy, the greatest fulfillment. Enjoy yourself. Above all, be present. Be present to yourself and to your surroundings. This you can only do when your heart and mind are open enough to accept without judgment whatever is in this moment. Allow your world to whirl around you as you stand silent and still. Breathe your heart open to the vastness of love until you contain everything in this still point. You are doing enough. Just be the love, for that is what the world needs from you most.